Greetings, everyone. This is Steven. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm actually thinking about a topic that I haven't talked about yet in depth. Specifically, it's about therapy. All right, so therapy is extremely, extremely important. It's paramount for the development and the progression of the mind of a schizophrenic. Um, I was actually diagnosed in 1999 after a traumatic event that occurred in me, as well as around me in 1999, summer of '99. So I've actually lived with schizophrenia for 20 years, 20 plus years. I think it's 21 years right now. Um, so I actually was ushered into therapy. I wouldn't say prematurely, but at the same time, I would say it had its time and season. So with therapy, I learned to pull back the layers of the mind and discover things about myself that I did not know existed, as well as ways to cope with the forces that I could not control, and the weight under which I was burdened, burdened, and burdened. um, Basically, his name was Dr. Michael Moran. I would like to give a personal greeting and acknowledgement to Dr. Michael Moran for bringing me back into the light. The therapy lasted for 11 years. And I can't stress this enough. You got to have a good therapist in order to understand how the mind of a schizophrenic works, at least from an objective perspective, because the doctor that's looking at you, more than likely, if they're a good doctor, they've got years, maybe if not decades of experience observing and dealing with and treating people with schizophrenia. I myself have a diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder, and when I sat down and talked with Dr. Michael Moran for the many years that I was with him, 10 years straight, and then about a year down at WKU, and I went through therapy there, but it just wasn't the same. Then I came back to Lexington and started visiting him, commuting to Frankfurt to get the therapy that I needed. He and I had a discussion, more or less one-sided, because he would ask the questions and I would do most of the talking, which I regret because I feel like sometimes I spent 11 years talking about myself instead of finding out who this person was, what kind of a human being they were outside of their own practice. I sincerely wish that I could have met Dr. Michael Moran in a different capacity. I really wish that I could have met him as a friend or a colleague or a student. But what he gave to me was extremely invaluable. I can't put a price tag on it. I now have the tools necessary to understand how my mind works from an objective perspective. Sometimes you need an objective perspective to understand some of the elements or the different hues along the spectrum that you don't see. As a schizophrenic, you're looking out from the eyes out, whereas they are looking from the eyes in. Okay? So do I think it's important to have a therapist? Yes, but be careful. Be very, very careful. I've had a doctor, whatever his name is, a therapist who sat there and passed me what do you call them? A clipboard that had a bunch of questions on it, like, are you feeling suicidal today? Can you rank your happiness between 1 and 5? 1 is not good and 5 is very good. Or did you take your medications this week? All that nonsense and that garbage. So we need people that are going to sit there, sit with you and really dissect the topic. We're going to need people that are going to listen attentively, also listen with the right types of responses back to whatever cues you are giving to them. I mean, I'm not suicidal, but I've thought about it. Okay? But I'm not a quitter. Okay? Those who quit never win, and winners never quit. Okay? And also it says in the Bible, enduring to the end. So you can take that scripture right there and use it for a multitude of different ways to apply it, a multitude of ways to employ it. But when it comes to therapy, make sure that you're critical about what they're doing. Because I had a doctor, the same doctor, who sat there and talked about for 3 sessions about what he was going to do. Not what he was doing, but about the technique that he was supposedly going to be using. My question to him is, how come you didn't use it? Don't talk about what you're doing. Employ it. Exercise it. Execute it. Don't waste my time. I don't have time to waste. I've been a schizophrenic for 21 years. And those 21 years have gone by super, super fast. So I don't expect you to be perfect. I don't expect you to be sublime. I expect you to do your job to the best of your ability, to the fullest of your ability. If you've read my case file, you know what's going on inside my head, at least from a perspective of a glimpse, okay? Because there's much more going on up here than meets the eye. I would hope that you would find a therapist that will take his or her time to unfold the layers, to get down to the crux of the matter, to acknowledge the crux, and then figure out a way to treat it. Because with schizophrenia, you're never going to be done with it. You're never going to be done with schizophrenia. You will live as a schizophrenic till your dying day. I don't care if you hear one voice in 20 years, or you hear 1,000 voices in one day. You will be schizophrenic for the rest of your life. And it's sad. And that is the sad but true truth. So be careful about who you entrust your mental health to, because there's a lot of people out there that will mislead you. There's a lot of people out there that will defraud you. There's a lot of people out there that will take your money and abuse it. I had a doctor back in 1997. I was living in Frankfurt. She called me into her office. It was about a 45-minute hour drive to Paris. And I sat in her office, her waiting room, for about 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes. She called me in. She said, "Stephen, how are you feeling today?" My response is, I'm okay. "Have you been taking your medicine, Mr. Quisenberry?" "Oh, well, yeah." "Are you feeling suicidal?" No. "Okay, come back and see me in a month." What kind of crap is that? Am I supposed to thrive on that? Am I supposed to survive on that? Am I supposed to understand what's going on from an objective perspective? No. Don't waste my time. Okay? That's why when I went to Dr. Michael Moran, we had conversations that went subterranean. Okay? We had discussions about poetry. We had discussions about what types of food you eat, exercise, both mental and physical, what types of books you read, what types of books he recommended, what type of books that I would bring to him, because my favorite author is Dean Koontz. I would often bring him quotes or excerpts from the book that I was reading. He would take it to the printer and the copier, make copies, and take it home to his family or to his wife and show his wife what Stephen had discovered, along the path of reading these books. I've read probably about 30, 40, 50 novels by Dean Koontz. The first time that I ever picked up a book by Dean Koontz, a kid across the street when we were living in Fort Huachuca, Arizona, came across the street with a box of books and said, "Hey, look, you can choose whatever book you want." So I shuffled through, the books, and I found one that had a really cool cover, and it was called Midnight by Dean Koontz. Okay, that was the beginning of my love affair with Dean Koontz. So we would have a wide variety and eclectic set of topics on what we would discuss in that session. Now, when I first was diagnosed, and for the first year or two, I would spend 2 or 3 hours with him 2 or 3 times a week. As I became a little bit more independent, as I became a little bit more stable, I would see him about once a week. And then it was once every 2 weeks. But he took the time to really examine what was going wrong with me, so we could try to figure out how to make it right. Because even though schizophrenia is horrific, there are times when it can be extremely beautiful. I've heard voices from left to right, up and down, forward, backwards. All the many degrees along the sphere of thinking. I've heard voices inside my head that say things that I will never repeat with my tongue. I will keep them inside the vault of my mind until I'm lowered into the ground, or my physical body is cremated and turned into ashes, and of course dispersed and caught by the wind on the Madison River in Montana, the Blue Ribbon Rivers. But therapy saved my life. Now, I give all credit to God. Yes. The God in the universe, the God within self. He who is within me is greater than he who's in the world. But therapy saved my life. So I want to thank you, Dr. Michael Moran, for resurrecting me from the depths of a mental death. So, to cap off, make sure you find a good therapist. Someone that's going to meticulously and patiently work with you through every avenue of thought that you have. Because we as schizophrenics have very aberrant and unique thought processes. So I recommend do your homework. Be selective. Be cautious, especially with your mental health. Don't entrust your health to someone that will abuse it. And there's a lot of doctors out there that will do just that. So stay blessed, stay prosperous, and stay prayed up.